Today is the 59th National Trade Day here in South Korea. The day was designated back in the mid-1960s to promote South Korea's exports while recognizing the efforts of local companies to export their products. South Korea has come a long way since then and is now one of the 10 largest economies in the world. But recently, the trade deficit has grown and overseas competitors have caught up to South Korean companies. Where does the country go from here? We have Cho Seongdae, Director of the Center for Trade Studies and Cooperation at Korea International Trade Association with us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Cho.
Good morning.
Now, South Korea's trade deficit continues to grow. When do you expect export levels to go back up? How are things looking for 2023?
We are seeing more reasons, some reasons affecting trade deficits, such as prolonged war in Ukraine, continued conflict between the U.S. and China, and the fatigues accumulated for 3 years of pandemic. Having said that, Korea's exports are not that bad, actually. By September, exports of Germany and Japan had grown by less than 2%, but Korea's export growth rate was more than 10%. Korea's export ranking rose to 6, which was 7th last year. One of the reasons that we see sluggish export growth, which is quite big, is the base effect of fourth quarter of last year. In 2023, Korea's export is expected to reach $662 billion, which is 4% reduction from this year. Advanced economies recovering from inflation or having recession, and China's economic stimulation package after easing the zero-corona policy, these are two key points to Korea's export returning back to growth.
Right, and as we just seen, the trade minister is now in Washington, D.C. regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, and has been making headlines recently. And many U.S. politicians have promised to make adjustments to the current law to accommodate Korean cars, especially. Is this likely to happen, or is it at this point inevitable that Korean automakers will have to face some damages?
Yes, it's been quite an issue, but at the same time, I like to point out that in Korea, the IRA was not reviewed or explained thoroughly. Many people in Korea focused on some provisions regarding electric vehicles and the batteries of EV. Yes, it is very important and also very problematic. However, the Inflation Reduction Act deals with rebuilding the reconstruction of the U.S. economy, and its industry is spending huge amount of money. That can provide quite good opportunities to Korean business or industries related to green growth. Personally, I'm not that optimistic on whether the act would reduce inflation, but very positive that the IRA will contribute to the economic change and industrial competitiveness. Going back to your question about amendment or adjustment of IRA, personally, I don't see that will happen in several months. I'm not saying there is no possibility, but amending a law which became effective 6 months ago is quite difficult. And even the law is evaluated very good in D.C. I heard that some people expect that the Republican majority in the House would signals for any change to the IRA, but what the GOP might make as political issue is a big federal expenditure, not electric vehicle supply chain as far as I know. I'm not saying that it is not important or meaningful that Korea points out the problem and require the amendment. However, we need to face political reality in the D.C. President Macron from France raised this issue the other day, but the White House answered no to the amendment after President Biden shows a tiny glimpse of possible change. It is my understanding that there is no fundamental solution without amendment. However, the Treasury and IRS are making the guidance to implement the IRA, and hopefully there must be some creative way to at least to minimize any negative impact on Korean businesses. Regarding Korean car sales, there might be some drop in Korean car sales in the US, but it might be a part of the result that the IRA brings. I cannot be sure, but Korean car sales may increase next year because consumers will spend more money on EVs. Bigger market size will make more car sales opportunities for Korean EVs.
Right, and Hyundai Group has been doing very well in the U.S. market recently, and I want to talk about that more. So autos and semiconductors have been the main export goods for South Korea, but now that today is Trade Day, I wanted to talk about the future, right? What are some future goods that South Korea can maybe invest in, or in terms of future positive aspects? Is the country expected to continue to depend on semiconductors and automobiles for foreseeable future, or are we seeing new industries coming up?
Semiconductors accounts for more than 20% of Korean exports. People took off masks and started to spend more time outside than inside with their TVs and other smart devices. That explains the decrease of semiconductor demand and its price in the world. Any big change in Korean key export items for the time being? I will say no. Digital transformation gets more speed. The Korean government does not want to lose its status as semiconductor powerhouse. Automobile is another powerful sector. Korea's EV sells very good these days, and as we talked earlier, and they are very popular not only in the US but also in the Europe. So Korean car makers will show valuable growth. But a couple of minutes ago, we talked about the IRA and similar policy change and possible trade pattern change. IRA makes major car makers to build EVs in the US if they want to sell their EVs in the US and EV batteries too. Chips and Science Act of August this year makes chip makers to build their semiconductors in the US. EU announced similar policy objectives and started to draft their rules, and they are drafting their rules to provide more subsidies to their industries. I do not have clear vision for what this will bring and what Korean export-oriented economy should prepare. Is it dark like a perfect storm, or shiny days are coming after short, heavy rain? I cannot say, but when big things start to move, it looks quite slow, but when it gets speed, it is super fast. What I mean is we are witnessing a huge change of global trade environment, and it's very beginning stage, early stage. So that is why we cannot say any specific results which the change will bring.
Right, we're just beginning with maybe looking at a long-term semiconductors and automobile, we're just beginning with the export. Well, thank you so much for your insights, and I hope you have a great day, Mr. Cho.
Thank you, you too.